Most people growing tomatoes are either pruning too much, not enough, or doing it completely wrong. And the crazy part? There's no single right answer. The correct approach depends entirely on what kind of tomato you're growing and how you've chosen to grow it. I'm going to break all of that down for you today. No fluff, no confusion. Just a clear, practical system you can apply in your garden starting this week. Welcome to Grovia. I'm here to help you grow smarter, harvest bigger, and stop guessing. Before we dive in, if you've ever killed a tomato plant, overpruned one, or just stared at it wondering what on earth you're supposed to cut, drop a tomato in the comments right now. You are not alone, and this video is for you. And if you find this helpful, hit that subscribe button. We drop practical growing content every single week here on Grovia. Now, let's talk tomatoes. Here's the thing nobody tells you up front. You technically don't have to prune your tomatoes. They will grow without it. But grow well? That's a different conversation. Think of your tomato plant like a business. Every leaf is an employee. Their job is to absorb sunlight and convert it into energy. Now picture a dense, overgrown plant where the inner leaves are completely shaded out. Those leaves are doing almost nothing. They're drawing resources without contributing. In any well-run operation, that's a problem. Pruning solves that. It removes the underperformers, redirects the plant's energy toward the leaves and fruits that actually matter, and opens up the plant structure so air can move freely through it. And airflow? That's huge. Tomatoes are vulnerable to diseases like early blight and septoria leaf spot, and both of those thrive in damp, stagnant, overcrowded conditions. Open up the canopy, and you dramatically reduce that risk. There's another bonus, too. As your tomato climbs upward, stripping those lower branches creates open space at the base of the plant. That means you can interplant herbs or companion plants right underneath, maximizing your growing space and keeping soil-borne disease away from your foliage at the same time. All right, this is the part that trips up almost every beginner. Before you touch a single branch, you need to know what type of tomato you're working with. Determinate tomatoes are essentially self-limiting. They grow to a predetermined height, usually between 4 and 5 feet, and the very top of the plant terminates in a flower bud rather than a growing tip. That's their signal that the show is almost over. All the fruit tends to ripen in one concentrated window, which makes them ideal if you're canning, preserving, or working with a short growing season. They're also more compact, so they are a great fit for containers, small raised beds, or tight spaces. Indeterminate tomatoes are the opposite. They have no natural ceiling. The plant just keeps growing, flowering, and fruiting until the weather forces it to stop. If you're in a warmer climate with a long season, indeterminate varieties can produce for months. Some gardeners in mild zones even manage to overwinter them, which sounds impossible until you see it happen. There's also a third category worth mentioning, dwarf indeterminate varieties. These have been bred to stay compact, similar to a determinate in size, but they technically keep producing like an indeterminate. For pruning purposes, treat them like determinates. We'll cover why in a moment. Quick question before we move forward. Which type are you currently growing? Leave it in the comments. Determinate, indeterminate, or honestly not sure. Either way, keep watching. We've got you covered.
What you're actually looking at? Before we touch anything, let's make sure we're all speaking the same language, because the most common pruning mistake happens when people cut the wrong thing. Your tomato plant has a main stem, also called the leader. This is the central trunk that everything else branches off of. Running off the main stem, you'll see sudden leaves. These are your energy producers, and in most cases, you want to leave them alone. At certain points on the stem, you'll spot what looks like a mini plant growing in the junction between the main stem and a leaf node at roughly a 45-degree angle. That is called a sucker, and suckers are the key to everything we're about to talk about. A sucker has every capability the main plant has. It can grow its own leaves, its own flower clusters, its own fruit. Left unchecked, it becomes an entirely new growing stem that can be useful or destructive depending on your strategy. Here's the critical rule before cutting anything. Always trace the plant upward from the point you're about to cut. Confirm there's a continued growing tip above it. If you accidentally remove the main leader, thinking it's a sucker, you've just stunted your entire plant. Take an extra 5 seconds to verify, every time. Determinate pruning is refreshingly simple, and that's good news for beginners. Your one job, find the first flower cluster on the plant and remove any suckers growing below it. That's the entire strategy. Why stop there? Because everything above that first flower node is future fruit. The moment you start cutting suckers above that point, you're not pruning, you're deleting your harvest. For the suckers below the flower node, if they're young and small, you can simply pinch them off with your fingers. This is actually preferable to using shears for small growth because it causes less trauma to the plant. For anything larger or woodier, use clean, sterilized pruning shears to make a smooth cut. Dull or dirty blades create wounds that invite disease. While you're down there, take a look at any leaves making contact with the soil. Remove those too. Soil contact is one of the fastest ways to introduce fungal disease into your plant. And that's it. Resist the urge to keep cutting. Let your determinate do its thing. This is where it gets interesting, and honestly, this is where most of the debate in the gardening world lives. With indeterminate tomatoes, you have real choices. The approach you take depends on your goals, your space, and your growing setup. Option 1, single leader. Remove every sucker. You're left with one main stem, a single, tall, focused growing line that channels all the plant's energy into one powerful column of fruit. This works beautifully on a vertical trellis or a stake system, and it typically produces fewer but larger tomatoes. Option 2, double leader. Let one sucker grow alongside the main stem. Now you have 2 producing stems. This is a strong middle ground. More fruit than a single leader, still manageable. Option 3, triple or quadruple leader. You can go up to 3 or 4 leaders. Beyond that, you're essentially back to an unpruned plant and the pruning loses its purpose. Here's how to execute this cleanly. Start by doing a base cleanup first. Strip any leaves touching the soil. Remove any visibly diseased or damaged foliage. Then identify your main leader clearly. From there, systematically locate each sucker and make your decision. Keep it as a secondary leader or remove it. Work from the bottom of the plant upward. Be methodical. And here's something most people don't know. Suckers grow their own suckers. If you miss one and let it develop for a week or 2, you'll come back to a tangled mess. Get into the habit of checking weekly, especially during peak growing season when growth is rapid. Pro tip, don't throw those suckers away. If they're healthy and disease-free, they're free plants. Strip the lower leaves, bury the cut end in moist soil, and because tomato stems have the remarkable ability to sprout roots along their entire length, you'll have a rooted cutting in a matter of weeks. If you're in a climate with a second growing window, that's an entirely free second crop. This final technique is one most growers skip, and it costs them. As your season approaches its end, whether that's triggered by dropping temperatures, frost warnings, or just the calendar, your indeterminate tomato is still trying to push new growth, and that's a problem. Every bit of energy going into new vegetative growth is energy not going into ripening the fruit you've already worked hard to develop. The solution is topping, cutting off the very tip of the plant's main growing leader. This signals to the plant that vertical growth is over. It redirects everything, every bit of stored energy into maturing the existing fruit on the vine. You've spent all season avoiding cutting the top. Now you do it on purpose, intentionally, with good reason. It's the final act of a well-managed growing season. Do this when you see the first signs that your season is wrapping up. Don't wait until frost is already at your door. Give your plant 2 to 3 weeks after topping to fully mature those final fruits. Tomatoes are the most researched, most debated, most ground vegetable on the planet, and yet they're still confusing people every single season. But now you have the framework. You understand the why, the what, and the how. Here's your homework. Go look at your tomato plant today. Identify whether it's determinate or indeterminate. Find one sucker and make a decision. That's how it starts. If this video gave you clarity, give it a like. It genuinely helps this channel reach more growers who need it. Subscribe to Grovia if you haven't already because we cover everything from soil health to harvest strategy, and we're just getting started. And before you go, what's the one thing about tomato pruning that confused you before watching this? Drop it below. Your question might become our next video. Until next time, grow with intention. This is Grovia.